In this video, I'm going to take you through 7 steps that you can use to apply for any long-term disability benefits program in Ontario. Let's dive in. Step number 1 is to identify the plans or programs that you might be eligible for. Now, there's a number of plans and programs in Ontario. I'll review them quickly here right now. I'm going to group them together by who is the provider or payer. So the first big payer or provider of long-term disability benefits in Ontario are insurance companies. Now, you will either have an individual disability policy or you may have shorter long-term disability benefits through a group policy. Group policies are available through workplaces. They're purchased by your employer to cover people at work. So if you have a medical plan, dental plan, it's possible that that plan could include short and long-term disability benefits. Now, the first one I mentioned was individual insurance policies. These are ones you'd have to buy yourself. I did this when I graduated law school. Other professionals do, but it's not as common. You'd have to go to a broker and buy the insurance yourself. The third type of insurance is really kind of a miscellaneous group. It includes things like critical illness, dismemberment, and what am I forgetting? Oh yeah, creditor disability. So creditor disability is attached when you get, sometimes you can opt to have it when you apply for a mortgage or a line of credit or something like that, and it can kick in and help you. Critical illness, often you can get that as included with group policies, or you may have bought it individually. But what it does is it pays a one-time payment if you get diagnosed with one of the critical illnesses listed in the policy. And lastly, the dismemberment is really kind of what it sounds like. If you lose a finger, an arm, an eye, you get paid a certain amount of money based on, how serious the loss is. Like a finger is less than an arm, and I think eyes are more than arms. So it's kind of gruesome, but that's how it is. You might have that as part of a group policy, and sometimes you can buy it individually as well. Now, the second big source of disability benefits in Ontario is, of course, the Ontario government. So you've got 2 programs that they run where the majority of the benefits they pay come from. The first is WSIB, the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board. They pay workers' compensation benefits. So to qualify for that, you must suffer a workplace injury and be working for an employer that is covered by WSIB. Most employers are, but just keep that in mind. Now, the second type of program, the second program in Ontario is ODSP, the Ontario Disability Support Program. That's available really to any resident of Ontario, but it has the added complication that in addition to meeting disability requirements, you also have to have a family income below and assets below a certain level. So it's one of the few types of disability benefits where your family income and assets come into play. So keep that in mind. Now, the third source of long-term disability benefits in Ontario is the Government of Canada. So these are available to Canadians countrywide and also for people in Ontario. The big one is the CPP disability program run by Service Canada. That will pay benefits to people who've paid in to the CPP program. And to have paid in, you must have been a worker and paid in through your payroll or such. If you've been a worker, you should check. It's possible that you'd have access to these CPP disability benefits, but you do have to have paid into the program. The next one is the EI, Employment Insurance Sickness Program. Now, this is not really a long-term disability benefit. It's a shorter benefit available for 15 weeks. It's paid through the EI program, and a lot of people aren't aware that it's available, but it is there. It'll cover you for up to 15 weeks, 55% of your income up to a certain threshold, but it's there and it's paid through the federal government. The last one is the Disability Tax Credit. That's actually administered by Revenue Canada. It doesn't pay out a monthly benefit like these other ones I've mentioned, but it is available to people who have a certain level of disability. It allows for someone who you may be financially dependent on, who's paying for a lot of your expenses. It allows that person to claim a tax credit based on your disability. So once you've reviewed these programs, you may have to dive in, learn a little bit more about the eligibility, watch some more of our videos that go deeper dive on each of these. You got to try to figure out which ones of these may be applicable to me. Once you've done that, before you really go any further, the next step is to ask yourself, do I have my doctor's support? It's hard enough to win long-term disability benefits, even if with a supportive doctor, let alone if your doctor isn't on board. If your doctor's not on board, you're looking at a waste of time trying to apply for long-term disability benefits, unless you had another doctor that supported you or a psychologist maybe, but it gets harder. If your primary care doctor is not behind and supportive of your applications for disability benefits, then you're going to run into problems. Now, there's things you can do if you have an unsupportive doctor. We've got other videos and content on that, but just know that you have to take stock if you have a supportive doctor before you move forward for applying for any of these disability benefits. So once you have your doctor's support, the next step is to get the application forms. Each plan or program is going to have its own unique forms. Now, these are going to include forms that you fill out, in some cases, forms that your doctor or employer has to fill out. So for group insurance, you're usually going to get the forms from your employer. If it's an individual policy, you get it directly from the insurer. If you're dealing with one of the government agencies, you get it from that agency, or you go online and download it from the website. The key thing is to make sure that you separate out the forms and you know which one is going to which program. Next one is obvious. Once you've got all your forms in place, you're going to sit down one by one and fill these out. Some of these programs will allow you to apply online. If you want to take it from someone who's been doing this for over 15, 16 years now, you should practice first on paper. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but there's nothing more disheartening when you go online and you've got this thing all filled out. It's taking you an hour and you go to hit something and it deletes or it erases. So you really want to get a hard copy here so that you're going to be able to work this through, take your time. You want as less stress as possible. So I recommend doing a practice on these forms, but you're going to fill out the forms. When you're filling out these forms, you do want to take your time and make your answers very carefully. This form is going to form the foundation of your whole claim. Now, it's not to say you can't go back and fix things later, but you want to get it right the first time. And if there's not enough room, the other reason I like paper forms is if there's not enough room, you can always attach another page or explain more. The problem sometimes with online is you're very forced to use only this little box, or you have to pick yes or no without saying maybe, right? With the paper form, you have a lot more room to be creative and with your answers and more space and such. So, but whatever, if you're going to do online or if you're going to do in paper, just know to take your time, look for opportunities to submit more information. And I won't go into huge detail here. We've got other videos that go specifically how to fill out forms, but you want to take your time, be careful with your answers because this is a very important part of your claim. So the second part of filling out forms is your doctor or employer in some cases need to fill out forms. When dealing with your doctor, again, I have more other videos that go into greater depth on this, but generally speaking, you are going to want to make an appointment with your doctor specifically to fill out this form and take the form with you and then take it when you leave or get the doctor to mail it right in. You don't want to just mail the form to your doctor. It's just going to sit there. They're not going to usually get to it. It's easier if you're there to clarify questions. So make an appointment specifically and only to fill out that form and go and get it done. Step number 5 is preparing a cover letter to go with your application. This is unfortunately where a lot of people get hung up, and this is where people get stressed out and want to know, what should I do? What do I put in this letter? I want to set your mind at ease here. With any of these programs you're applying to, at least you can just do a cover letter that just says, please find enclosed, and list the things that you're attaching. And sometimes that can be it. You don't have to go into a lot of detail in these cover letters, especially if you're not sure what you should be talking about or what angle you should take, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's better to say less is more. Saying less can be helpful. Let's put it that way. You do not want a 10 to 20 page cover letter going with your application. That is just not going to be, I have not seen that ever work out in a good way. Okay. Whether it's a lawyer or whether it's a person doing it. Shorter is better. And you want to be on point and very focused on what information you want to add in addition to the application. So what can you add in there? Well, again, like I said, you want to list out the things that are attached. So the application forms that are attached, you may indicate that you're attaching the application. The doctor is going to send theirs in directly. Just make it easy so that you can coordinate when the person gets your package, it orients them to what's going on. You might say, I've had to add there wasn't enough room on spaces for questions 5 and 6. So I've attached this additional page answering those questions. Perfect. You orient them in your cover letter to the fact that you've attached that page. You may have medical appointments coming up and maybe you weren't able to really get that in as part of the application. You can indicate, I've got these medical appointments coming up. I'm going to want to get you more information once they happen. That's another good thing. If there's things about your employment, about why it is you can't do the job, this is a good place to put it in there if it's not somewhere that you could really fit it into the application. But that's it. You do not want to be going into big legal arguments or anything like that or telling long stories. You need to be very careful about how you approach this. at this phase, if you're doing your own application and you're not 100% sure what the issues are going to be in your case, and you don't have access to all your medical records, be very careful with pinning yourself down too much, okay? So the next step, step 6, is attending an interview with the claim representative. So once you get your little cover letter done, you've sent it in with your application, the insurance company, the government agency, whoever is managing this is going to get your application and assign it to a claims representative. They all use the same process. They all use their own claims representatives. So the claims representative will be the person in charge of your claim. They assign a claim number to it. They're in charge of getting more information, and ultimately they will be the ones who decide to put approved or denied on your claim. One of the things that they will want to do is once they get their information, in almost all cases, they will want to call you to get more information. So you should welcome that phone call, talk to them, answer their questions. It's important to prepare yourself to know like this phone call could come out of the blue. They don't always like tell you when they're going to call. So if you know you're getting your application in, you should at least be prepared to talk to them. What kind of questions are they going to ask? Well, they're generally going to want to clarify things about your medical treatment, maybe treatment that's upcoming. They may want to know more details about your work, what work duties were difficult. They may want more clarification on the symptoms and how they affect you in your day-to-day life, this kind of thing. So just be prepared to talk about that if they call, and just realize that this is part of the process. They're not necessarily trying to trick you with anything. They just want to fill in the information and things that they need to be able to make a decision, basically. Now, one final thing before I move on to the next one is that you should ask that it's okay with them that you can record this phone call. So you should record the phone call. I don't like people recording it without telling them for reasons I won't get into now, but you're better off just asking them and letting them know you want to record it. This is not to try to trick them later on. You want to keep a record. So later on, if there's any disputes, there's an actual phone recording of what was said, okay? If you can't record for some reason, you should take notes during the call, after the call, put a date on it, keep it in a separate pad where you track these things so that you have a record later of what was said during the call so it can't be mischaracterized by them. They may or may not be recording the call, but they definitely will take notes. And if there's some dispute later about what was said and they took notes and you didn't, they're more likely to be believed because they have notes to back up the notes that were made at the time that back up their point of view. Okay, so you definitely want to have your own notes and ideally record the call, but don't do it secretly. Let them know that you're going to record the call. They should have no problem with that. Last one, and I'm a little out of breath, but let's charge on here. Cooperate and wait. Okay, cooperate. Most of what I tell people who call into our firm for advice is you need to cooperate. You need to be seen as a cooperating person, and the judge or whoever would review all this later on needs to see that throughout the process, you were the cooperative one that was helpful, open, and honest, okay? Now is not the time to get into petty fights over whether they can get this record or you want to send this thing to them. Or look, if they want to get more information to try to approve your claim, they want your family doctor's records, they want information from your psychologist, you should cooperate to make it happen. Okay, quite honestly, if, for example, if our firm were involved in helping you, we would want to get all that stuff to put forward as part of your claim. So you should allow them to get it, facilitate the process, cooperate. Don't get into petty fights with them. You may not even think it's petty, but if you think you're going to dispute some of these things, get legal advice. But generally, you're going to want to cooperate. Now, once they get all this added information, you just have to wait for them to make a decision. Sometimes it can take anywhere from 30 to 60 days. That's assuming they got all the information they wanted. It can take longer if there's delays in getting more information to them and that kind of thing, but you should be expecting to wait at least 2 to 3 months or 1 to 3 months for this decision to come in once they have all the information. That's it. You've got a basic 7-step process you can apply that you can use to apply for any long-term disability benefits program in Ontario. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified in the notification bell, and you'll get notified of videos we do in the future. And if you want to get more information, some of our inside tips and things that we don't share with the general public, sign up for our email list over at resolutelegal.ca, and you will get emailed once a week, usually information that we have coming out, our webinars that are only available to email subscribers, and much more. I'll see you back here next time. Take care.